Morning sunshines, welcome back to a new video on gems. As you guys know, people have done gem guides all over the place, and even I did a small gem guide in the middle of some other video unrelated to gems. It was in there somewhere a while ago, okay? But we've now just finished off the major half-year anniversary event, and gems galore came in flooding us, okay? So I'm a whale, I'm a Kraken. I bought pretty much every gem that appeared in the shops, if not almost, okay? Almost every gem crate that came in the store. That was in the voucher store, it was in the separate stores specifically for gems, it was in even the normal gems that came in the value pack store. I bought them all, guys. Gem City. And I'm going to go through my gems now on my marches to show you guys what it looks like now in the middle of our season 3. What your gems should look like after this event if you've been collecting them all, and where I put my gems, why I chose gems for there and there and there. You'll see. So first of all, guys, let's start with my Lubu march. It's my strongest march by far, and I'll explain something here. There's something I'm not 100% sure with, and I don't think a lot of people are. Do gems all apply to the whole march, or do they apply specifically to the individual? They, in my opinion, apply specifically to the individual, but people can get confused when it's something like unit capacity, because it appears to apply to the march, but actually it's just applying to the hero, and each hero brings unit capacity with them, and they're just all added together individually. I think that's how that works. So I think that's, in my opinion, that's how I've set my gems up, okay? Assuming that they only apply specifically to the individual. Now, why Lubu? Let's start with Lubu, obviously, first. Why would I put these gems on Lubu? These are all strategy unit attack tier 1, alright? So they're an upgrade from regular reds. And Lubu is obviously the big damage dealer, so I'm not going to waste these slots on unit capacity and health. Not for Lubu, because he does all the damage of the march almost, and I'm going to give it even more by adding these percentages on here with each attack gem. It's just going to make him stronger and hit harder. Of course, that's what we want to go for. That's Lubu's job. So that is why I do that, and that principle applies to other heroes too that are major damage dealers, like Mulan, if you can afford these kind of gems. So let's go through them here. Arm pieces is always going to be might, okay? It's always going to be certain gems, right? So it's might or strategy, one or the other usually, or armor. But of course I have might 1 on him, and all of the 3 of those are might because we want to get Lubu's might up, of course, to do more damage in general. Moving on to the body piece, is going to be the skill gems, and he does secondary strike skills. So we got our secondary strike 1s on him here, and we got 1 secondary strike 2 on him here as well. So we started breaching the tier 2 reds for Lubu, which is very nice. But of course, this is basically just damage, so we just want to increase his damage because that's his job. Get as much damage as possible, and going from tier 1, which is 3.45, to tier 2, making it 5.25. Big nice jumps in their numbers here, so I'm looking forward to getting those more. The legs is a mix of all 3 pieces. You got 1 slot for each of the 3 different pieces that you have before it, and that's going to be, well, I got unit capacity on here because I don't have any more good attack gems, so I might as well. Got might 2 on them there. Well, unit capacity is unit capacity 1, which is nice, cool, 1150 on there. Might 2 is 15.75 might. That's really good. And then another secondary strike 2 on there as well. So Lubu looking tasty, fine. So yeah, just keep that in mind, folks. Lubu is the major damage dealer. We're not going to flood him with unit capacities and stuff where we could also increase his damage. It's the main thing to keep in mind. Now, my Itilla, coming on to Itilla, is a major support carry here, so he's going to be filled with unit capacity. This is where we have to make it up, right? He does pretty good normal attack damage, ain't going to lie. He actually does some numbers in there, that's pretty good. And you'll see also partially why and how that increased. But for his strategies, helmet, yeah, it's all going to be unit capacity. We want to buff up the march as much as possible here on this guy because he's not a major damage dealer at all, right? Moving on to the arm piece, we actually have all attributes. I picked all attributes, and I think all attributes is really a vital one for support-ish heroes because it gives them the armor as well as the might, where they might be doing some damage, but you'll also want to be keeping your march alive or stronger in general too. So yes, Attila does do some pretty good normal attack attack damage, as well as a little bit of skill damage too. But he needed to keep him alive as well. We need to make up for our armor and defense where Lubu's lacking. So all attributes is really good. We get armor and might to do that damage and get that defense on him. So I went for 3 on the arm piece there. Moving on, his main damage really is normal attack. So we have actually normal attack 1s on him here, all 3 for his skill type. And then finally, the leg piece is the mix, and it's the same story like I just went through for the last 3 pieces. Unit capacity 1 on there, heroes, all attributes, and normal attack damage up. So pretty much the same as the last 3 pieces. Finally, Rani. Alright, Rani is full on support. She barely does any damage. So we'll just have a look at her things here. Again, making up for the unit capacity on him. We got 3. Sadly, these are not T1 yet. These are regular reds, and you can see the difference. It's all the way down to 760 per gem here, which is still okay. And then on the arm pieces, again, same thing. She does a bit of damage, and we want to keep that bit of damage as good as possible coming in, but then also get the armor benefit. The 3.4 applies to everything, okay? It applies to armor, siege, strategy, and might. So we're getting all of that on each 3 gems here, which is pretty good. For someone who still does a little bit of damage, but also getting that defense up. And then her body piece, her skill is actually turn-based. One of her major skills, which, let me show you. Get out of this. The skill I'm talking about here is King's Blade. Alright, this is a turn-based, 9 seconds, as well as obviously the very first second you enter the battle. 200% might bonus with 46 chance to increase all your heroes' damage. So it's quite nice. Get a bit of extra damage on there. There's nothing really better to put in there on the armor piece for types of skills, because this is what she does, right? Her support is to increase the damage of the march. So we're going for extra damage on that particular skill only, really, by just putting in some extra turn-based gems, which are not really used much elsewhere, except for my pike march. So we actually have quite a few to spare. Leg piece is the mix, all right? So we got unit capacity, the all attributes, and then a little bit of normal attack damage to fit it in there with a nice red, because we actually are using other turn-based gems elsewhere, like I said, on the pikes, but we still had enough left over to use them on her as well. So nice to have another red gem for normal attack damage in here as well. That's Lubu's march. Looking at Ramses, this is probably a hot one because people are trying to use him, trying to get him, and using him a lot as much as possible. People have him on swords, all right? I actually opted for archers, and I think it's clever to do so because a lot of people are worried about Lubu, so they all went swords, and then a lot of people are going to be running 2 sword marches, and I'm going to have 2 archer marches. So I'll be countering them quite well. Looking at him, he's the major damage dealer. If you don't know about Ramses, once he uses commander skill, which is a few seconds after the battle starts, he starts using this skill, the signature skill, every second. Alright, and it just keeps going, and it does damage and everything, so it's really nice. So similar to Lubu, all damage on him. These are only regular reds, as just want to get as much damage as we can on this guy because he's doing skills every second all the time. It's all over the place, and he is the major damage carry on this march, so we're going to put that in there on his helmet. We don't want to waste any spots for unit capacity or health. Looking at the arms, he's got strategy tier 1s on him there, so 10.35 strategy extra per gem on that. Very, very good. And of course, his damage is based off of strategy, with strategy bonuses and whatnot. And his body pieces is skill types, so he's active skills, and active skills usually only have a percentage chance of working, so sometimes people might feel like it's a waste. It's not a waste, especially in Ramses' case, because we know he's using his active signature skill every second regardless. All right, so it's a mad machine, and he's going to be getting the damage benefit out of that with these gems here all the time. So it's probably the best single use of skill gems ever in any march because we know he's using that move all the time. And then the leg piece is a mix, okay? It's the unit capacity 1, some extra unit capacity, strategy 1, and active 1, right? It's the same as the other 3 pieces. Moving on to Charlemagne. Charlemagne still does a little bit of damage, and these are my skills here. I actually opted for this instead because this actually steals more might from the enemy and gives it to my commander. That's just juicy, or that's just good stuff. And then his main here skill is an active skill 2. This is a secondary strike skill, so there's a little bit of bad synergy there, but we don't have to worry about that because he's not the main damage dealer, all right? And his signature skill is passive, so we don't have to worry about that at all. His gems are unit capacity, ones, T1s that is, and health. So a good mix. It's always good to mix unit capacity and health gems because they both give you a good effect for endurance on the march, and it's good to just mix them so you don't run out of one or the other. Alright, that's just a good sense to have a good mix of different gems. Arm pieces here is all strategy because he does get strategy bonus and he still does a fair bit of damage too, so it's well worth it having this here. And then body pieces is a skill type, and we just went all actives because, like I said, his main damage skill is an active skill, so I might as well put it in for that rather than the purple skill. And then his leg piece is a mix of all three, just like the other ones. Unit capacity 1, strategy, and active. Theodora is the healer of the march, okay, as you can expect. She recovers units, has a 100% chance to purify, and then she actually has a damage skill too. I gave her the damage skill here, War Tactics, which deals 280% strategy bonus and recovers units, which is decent, right? And that's strategy bonus too. So we wanted to give her strategy as much as possible, but also healing. Strategy is okay. Let's have a look at the gems here. The headpiece is similar to any support role, which is just fill it up with health and capacity. And these are capacity 1s and health 1s, pretty good. Her arm piece is strategy, just regular strategies, because we want to benefit from the strategy bonus, of course. The body piece for the skills, I actually gave her the healing skills, all healing T1s, by the way, so she gets just more healing off, just more restoration, because I think I need it because I'm an archer march. I do also have stage 2 mercenaries done, completed, so I get a lot of endurance from that, but having better healing on her too just makes Ramses much more endurable, way more than your average player, so I'm not going to have an issue being an archer march in the first place. And then the legs here, I actually put on a unit defense gem here because I actually had one to spare. Now, I actually have something to say about this when we get to my King Arthur march next. This is not optimized here by being on an archer march, not really. It just gives me a little bit of extra defense, which is fine, and I actually am Chinese civilization, so I get extra defense all over the place for my archers, especially with the stage 2s done. And it's okay to have here, it's fine, but it has much better effect being on swords and pike marches because they have good defensive stats already. Archers do not. Archers have really low defensive stats, so they're suffering really badly there. And archers, generally speaking, are supposed to be glass cannons. However, Ramses doesn't really work like that. You have to endure for a while for Ramses to get working. Okay, it's kind of just an unfortunate overlap there for archers, but like I said, I'm a Kraken. I've already got all this stuff done. I can get away with it. Most people will not be able to get away with that, so do consider that. And if you are running Ramses on swords, this is definitely a good idea to have some of these gems in here, because swords are tanks. They have the highest defensive stats. By the way, these stats I'm talking about are actually the troop type stats. It's not something you can see from click on your heroes. Just the different troops have different stats. And I actually have a separate video for that, and I'll leave that at the end for anyone who click into, so you can actually get some education on that if you need it. And then of course we have the all attributes, so she gets some benefit from the armor and from the damage and from strategy too, so it's really good. And then healing again. So that's that march done. My next march is King Arthur, and like I said, the unit type for swords is tanks. All right, their defenses are the highest defensive stats in the game. And let's have a look. Let's have a look. You guys know King Arthur's the main damage, and swords, generally speaking, especially King Arthur or Miyamoto marches, do not really do loads of damage very quickly. How they play out is that they do pretty good damage over a long period of time with good endurance durability, right? So they last in the fight for a long time. That's really kind of how swords work, but you're not making wonders happen like that, all right? That's just not how they work. So let's go into the gems here. I got health, I got unit capacity, and I got unit defense 1 on him. I got unit defense 1 on everybody because I think it's good to stack up extra defense stats on the tanks. It just makes sense. You're just getting more benefit out of it that way, and it works. And then looking at the arms, it's all might 1s for King Arthur because he is the main damage dealer. We want him to be getting that damage off. It's really necessary. And then body pieces, he's active, guys, so he is going to be benefiting from active gems because his main skills are active anyway, and it'll just do more damage. And then leg pieces, the mix of all three. The unit capacity, the might 1, and another active gem as clockwork. This is pretty much the system of how it works. If you're wondering about what gems to pick for your body piece in terms of skills, look at what does damage, okay? If you have passive skills on anything other than warrior marches, you don't need passive gems because they're not going to do anything, so get them off of there. But his main skills are active, his signature skills active. This is passive, don't have to worry about that, but this is also active. I gave him a second damaging active skill, so he's going to get a lot of benefit out of those each time he uses them. That's that. Tribuana does actually some pretty good damage, and people are always asking me about my skills. Why did I pick this instead? People have different skill options to me, but I picked Bloodthirst and King's Blade, and that's turn-based, and this one is active, so it's not the perfect synergy, but this deals might damage to enemy troops every 9 seconds, with 46 chance to increase all your heroes' damage by 30 seconds for 3 seconds. We saw that on one of my previous marches there. It's good to have. And then this deals might to the enemy troop and recovers units. So I actually opted for recovery, more recovery, because I also have Constantine. And that it's a pretty good sense, good logic to me, because this is a tank march, really, that still does pretty good damage. And she's doing damage and healing us on top of the main healer. It's just extra heals, extra endurance. Let's have a look at our skills. Sorry, our gems here, which is unit capacity, unit defense 1, like I said before, and then unit health, still pretty good. Good combination. I have one of 3 different ones on there as well, so I'm not spreading or not focusing too many of the same gems in one place, and I have them used elsewhere too. Then the arm piece is armor, and all attributes to increase her armor and her strategy or might bonuses and her attack damage too, so it's pretty nice, but mostly armor, so we get that extra defense for the march, because I think that was a priority. And then we have healing, a turn-based, and healing for her here, because she does have a turn-based skill and she does do healing, and we want to get benefit on all of them. All right, just spreading it balanced. That's really what I was going for, balanced on this. And then the leg piece is a mix of everything. It's the might. Oh, we have a might gem on her there, we have a unit capacity gem, and we have a turn-based on there as well. So, pretty big mix on Tribuana. I think Tribuana would be a really difficult one for most people who aren't too familiar with the game. Wondering what the hell gems do I put into her? Because some heroes are not that plain and simple, like I showed you so far. This one is a kind of a wild card. You gotta just play balanced, and you gotta focus on what skills you actually have and where you're gonna get the benefit out of. Now, Constantine's a pretty simple one, but this is our first major healer, I believe. This guy does no damage. No damage. He's hell-bent focused on just healing and endurance. That's all he does. So, with that in mind, let's look at his gems. Unit capacity, unit defense, and health. Same as everybody on this march. Armor is armor. Sorry, his arms are armor, because he actually has armor bonuses for his healing and all that stuff, so absolutely vital, pivotal to increase his armor as much as possible. We don't need to waste slots for all stats, because he doesn't do any damage anyway, and he even has a ring that lowers his damage for other benefits, alright, so we're not going for damage on this guy at all. And he has healing, of course, because he just does loads of healing as well. So absolutely vital, very easy to pick these gems for him, because we know his job. And then his leg pieces, those 3 all together, right? The unit capacity, armor, and healing. It's the only job he has, and it's perfect synergy with his skills. Let's move on. Mulan, very similar to Lubu. She's a secondary strike march that does a lot of damage. In this case, we have 2 major damage dealers, and then 1 support, rather than a heal or anything like that. So, very similar to Lubu in general. Let's go to Mulan, and I have Mulan as commander because actually her commander skill's better. It will get off more because it's 250 rage cost, so you'll be doing more damage. Mulan is still king damage dealer on this march. So with that in mind, let's go into her skills, her gems here. Again, considering that we have 2 major damage dealers, we want to get those gems on, but we also don't want to sacrifice the health and endurance of the march, so we do have to kind of balance it. We are going for 1 attack gem here on her and on Bellevue, which we'll see in a second, as well as the health and capacity for endurance for the march in general, because these archers can be squishy. You guys know it already by now. We get our arm piece. It's might 1, might 1's all over, because big damage, big might equals big damage, right? Her chest plate is going to be secondary strike 1s, almost all 1s, and that's because her skills are secondary strike, and that's where you're going to get damage. So it's all damage in there, those two pieces. Very nice. And good synergy with her skills too. And then her leg piece is the mix of all three. Exactly like clockwork. It's always the same. So very good for Mulan. Very simple. Then looking at Bellevue. Again, secondary strikes. Looking at her helmet here. It's the same idea, guys. Unit capacity, and then an attack. All units are types to attack. So I think it's important because you want to get that extra buff on the attackers, like I said before. Arm piece is all mites as well. There's one might 1 in there as well, so it's pretty decent. Working on this. Body piece is going to be all secondary strikes too, as you'd expect. And then leg piece is the mix of all three. Exactly the same system to Mulan, because she is doing the same job overall. She's just not the commander. That's okay. And now support Mehmedi II. People have doubts about him. He's actually quite good. He's actually very good. He pretty much halves the squishiness of this march because of his skill here, which activates every 6 seconds and gives you both endurance and damage. That's great. That's actually really good. And then he also has some extra healing and endurance here as well in his other skills. So he's not by any means a damage dealer, but he is making your march much more durable and even more damaging. So it's really good to have. Look at his gems here. Like I said, so no damage really coming from this guy, barely. We actually just straight up pile on the unit capacity and health for him here, as you'd expect. Arm piece is going to be armor and all attributes. I just have all attributes here. I could probably put in armor. I actually want to double check how much normal attack damage he does, because this march does do normal attack damage, but I could actually probably put that elsewhere and just put armor in him for more durability. That's up to you guys too, yourselves. Body piece is going to be healing, so he gets extra healing out of those skills that he uses. And then actually, we have a red gem. No, we have a gold gem in there. I didn't even notice that. I'm gonna actually stick in a red version of that just for good measure. And unit capacity, all attributes, and healing. The reason I used all attributes is to get that little extra might, because he does get might bonus on his recovery. I think that's important here. He also gets might bonus on the signature skill. So that's probably why I picked a couple of all attributes as opposed to just all armor. Finally, my weakest march at the moment is my Marshal Pikes, although they do hold their ground quite well compared to all the other guys that still have stage 2 completed. These guys don't even have stage 1 completed in the mercenary techs, but they last just as long because their stats are really good and their armor is really good and all that stuff. So let's go into the pikes here. And people who are running warrior pikes is quite different, and I'll explain the differences too, but let's just go through this. So I have 2 damage dealers on this as well, right? That's Caesar and Octavian. Both of them are big damage dealers, so we want to be paying attention to that. So I gave them a unit attack gem, at least one, and then I also have unit capacity and unit health. Now I wouldn't give these guys 2 or 3 unit attack gems, because even though they are the damage dealers of the march, the march itself is not a massive damage dealing march. What this excels at is just holding its ground, surviving, and doing damage while that time is being passed, and that's why I think this is really good balance, but the focus needs to be primarily on the endurance of the march for pikes, and that goes for any pikes. That's for any pike marches. They have really good balanced stats versus like a swordsman which has tank stats, right? Pikes are balanced attack and defense, so you actually have really good defense stats still to work with, but you do get that attack off. And if you actually find a good sweet spot, your march is just going to be standing there. It's going to be doing work for a long time in a fight, and having enough damage is important, because I used to run Ram Cam for this march as the head, and it was just all endurance. I just ran all endurance. It just didn't do any damage, so all it did was stood there and took hits for a long time, yes, but it didn't get any work done, and it was just in the end not really worthwhile. It just didn't do anything for us. Holding your ground and just standing there for a long time wasn't that beneficial, not really. So you do want to be killing the enemy march too. That's why I swapped to Caesar, alright? That's the main reason. So you can see those gems there for that, get that extra damage. And then we're going all in on the damage for his might attacks here on his arm piece, and then his skill type, which is turn-based, on his body piece, like clockwork. And then hearts, might, and turn-based for his leg piece. Octavian's very similar. He's actually a bigger damage dealer than Caesar, it seems, even though Caesar has a great commander skill. Unfortunately, it doesn't get off too often, but you can see my rings too. And my rings are all endurance rings on this, because that's just what they're good for. They're all 3 rings are endurance rings. That's just really good for pikes. It's just really good to have on pikes. Anyway, looking at Octavian, 1 damage gem, of course, heals and endurance and whatnot. So not heals, health and endurance for unit capacity. And then going into the damage he does, we actually went for all attributes here as opposed to all might. I think mainly because as my final march, I didn't have enough might for him, but I also wanted to get the benefit of armor on as many of them as I could. And I think it was a good choice because they get the benefit of both the might, which is 3.4 might, as well as 3.4 armor, versus 6.85 might only. I think it's a good spread. And he still doesn't do a lot of damage anyway, so it's worth it. And the armor piece here is his turn-based gems. We're actually getting turn-based tier 1s on him now because he does most of the work. Damage-wise is really good. And his leg pieces, heart, might, and T1 turn-based as well. So he's looking great. He's actually looking in really good shape right now for this. Now, Ram Camp. People would have often picked different skills to what I'm running right now on Ramcam. I actually opted for primarily just endurance focus for this, so survivability actually works really well. You guys know Ramcam by now, most likely. It's just recovery with a might bonus, reduced damage taken, and then that's exactly what I doubled up on for his other 2 skills. Reduced damage taken and recover units, alright? That's really all I went for. A lot of other people would have gone for War Elephant and Savage. I thought not. No. I thought I'd go for endurance on this guy. So let's look at his gems. Unit capacity. Health, unit capacity. So he's a healer role, or he's a supporter role. We want to just pile on the endurance here. We don't need to put on a damage gem on him. We got all armors on him because he actually gets armor bonuses as well. And then we got all heals for the extra heal effect because he has 2 skills that do heals quite regularly. It's pretty good. And then his leg pieces, the mix. All right, it's the health, armor, and healing. All right, that's exactly what you might expect. It's really good synergy for his moves. And obviously it will all depend on what moves you pick. So if you did go for more damage on him, you're only going to go for might instead. You guys know the drill. But for warrior pikes, and I think this is an important note for people who run warrior pikes, because a lot of people still do, this is the only place you use passive gems. Passive gems will help your warrior pikes do more damage. You're not going to be using turn-based like I am on these guys. In their place there, you're going to be using passive gems because warrior pikes are the only heroes that do damage with passive moves, all right, directly. So that's the only thing you can use passive gems on. So it's really actually good to have them because there's nowhere else to use those gems and they'll just be piling up anyway. So you should have a lot of them either way. So that's really nice. It's just a little note, one note for warrior pike users. Final note on actually my gems overview. This is just what it looks like. I did buy, like I said, a lot of gems during the half anniversary event. There's so much to get, and by no means is it all of these, but it did help me push to more tier 1s and start tier 2s. Although I did already have a lot of mythicals and legendaries before that, it's just so many anyway. It just added so many more to my collection, which obviously gives me that necessary power boost. So hitting tier 2s at last is really nice. It definitely feels good, and it feels like I'm kind of slowly making my way up to the end game of gems, or at least catching up to people who are already at the end game, so the difference between us in fights is less, and that's what it looks like. You can see the numbers there for your consumption. Well guys, that's it. Thanks very much for watching my gem guide. That's really all I have to say. I think if you follow the principles I kind of covered here with my explanations, it covers everything you need to know that you'll ever need to know for gems in the future, for any marches that you might have now or any marches you might have in the future. It's really just those principles, okay? That's really how it goes. I don't need to repeat myself anymore. I've pretty much covered it all throughout the video, so hopefully this helps everyone who's wondering about gems and wondering what a Kraken's gem case looks like. It's Kraken. But anyway, thanks for watching this, and I'll see you around. Feel free to have a look at that video. That's a video about the unit type stats as opposed to the hero stats, and I think it's important, especially if you don't really know what that is, have a look, because that will help you understand how to use your marches and how to build them too, which is pretty much what I was kind of discussing on a little bit during this video. Thanks for watching this. I'll see you around. Have a good one. Bye.